Tywin Lannister is such a vindictive killer that he had an entire song written about that one time that he obliterated 2 houses at the ripe old age of 19, a song which has continued to haunt weddings, both in Westeros and our world for, years and years to come. I am, of course, talking about the Rains of Castamere, that terrifying song that plays at the Red Wedding and, signals that bad things are about to happen. And the song is based on the very real uprising that Tywin Lannister was able to put down from houses Tarbeck and Rain. The Rains were the noble house that lived at a castle called Castamere. You get it. It's a thing. But what did Tywin do, and how did that revolt get put down in such a traumatic way that there's an entire murder song written about it that now gets played as a threat? To understand the context of the Rain Tarbeck revolt, we need to get acquainted with Ellyn Rain. Well, or Ellyn Lannister, or Ellyn Tarbeck, because she is all of them. So Ellyn was born a Rain of Castamere, and then as a young woman, she was betrothed to the eldest Lannister son. I'm spacing on the name. But basically, Tywin's grandfather, Gerald, is the Lord of Casterly Rock at the time. And then Tywin's father, Tytos, is like the third son of this Lord Gerald. So Ellyn marries, Tywin's father's, oldest brother, so Tywin's oldest uncle. And Ellyn is super stoked for this. She wants to be the Lady of Casterly Rock. She wants the power and the influence that comes with that. But whoops, oh no, her husband dies. I don't remember how he dies. I think it was in one of the Blackfire Rebellions. Which one, though, I couldn't tell you. I could look it up, but you don't like me for knowledge, you like me for charm, right? Yeah, sure. Anyway, so Ellyn has a problem because, her husband, who is eventually supposed to become the Lord of Casterly Rock, has died, leaving her not in line to, become the Lady of the Rock, because her father-in-law, Gerald, is still alive at this point. So because her husband died, Gerald's second son is meant to, become the next Lord. I believe his name is Tyon? I think it's Tyon. So what Ellyn does is because, she doesn't want to lose out on this sweet gig that she's landed, she goes to Tyon and basically, seduces him and basically convinces him to put aside his own betrothal and marry her instead because, don't you wanna? And Tyon's like, yeah, sure, yeah, we could do that. So they get married, and she's like, great, okay, as soon as Gerald dies, I'm going to be the Lady of Casterly Rock. It's going to be awesome. But whoops, oh no, Gerald doesn't die, and instead her second husband, Tyon, dies. Ellyn is just not lucky. So Ellyn goes, well, if it worked one time, it'll work another. So she goes to Tytos, Tywin's father, who is, I think, already married at this point to Tywin's mother, Jane Marbrand, and she's like, hey, why don't you put your wife aside and marry me instead? I will sleep with you right now just to seal the deal. How would you like that? And Tytos is just just a goofy, wimp of a man. He's just kind of the worst. And so he's like, yeah, that sounds great. And then because, she's loud and tells him what to do and is in charge, he gets really nervous and he can't do the do. And because he can't do the do, and he is so nervous and threatened by this woman, he basically runs off to his wife and immediately confesses. Which that's good. Yes, please go tell your wife. But also he was very down to do it until he couldn't. So fuck you, Tytos, you kind of suck. But anyway, so he tells his wife that that's what Ellyn tried to do, and then his wife is like, oh no, we're nipping this in the bud. And so she goes to Gerald, her father-in-law, and is like, hey, so your daughter-in-law is now trying to pull the same shtick, but now with my husband. So can you just deal with her, please? And Gerald's like, yeah, we can't have her doing that. That's bad. So Gerald marries her off to this older lord, Lord Tarbeck. So as you can see, she was a Rain, then a Lannister, now a Tarbeck. And then a little while later, Gerald dies, and so Tytos becomes the Lord of Casterly Rock. But as I've mentioned before, Tytos is just kind of the worst. He's bad at his job, he's a wimp, he's a pushover, and so immediately everyone starts taking advantage of him. Particularly Ellyn and House Tarbeck and House Rain at her kind of, urging. And so all of them, they start taking out all these crazy loans from the Lannisters and then just not paying them back because who cares? Tytos is a pushover, he's not going to do anything. Now, Tywin is a young man and now the heir to Casterly Rock, whenever his father eventually dies, which won't be for a while. But young Tywin is like, hey, no, we're going to set this right. We're not going to be laughed at. We're going to deal with them. And so I believe he kidnaps her husband at some point and is like, hey, pay up, please. and then she kidnaps a bunch of Lannisters, and I think the Rains might also. I don't remember exactly, but there is kidnapping done on both sides, and then they go to Tydos and they're like, "Hey, your son's being mean. Can we just be done with all of this?" And Tydos is a pushover, so he's like, "Yeah, Tywin, just chill. It's fine. Just everyone release everyone, and you know what? I'll even forgive your debts. Ain't that nice of me?" And Tywin's like, "The fuck, dude? I don't. What are you?" So finally, Tywin is like, "You know what? We're not dealing with this anymore." And he kind of sets a trap. So he sends ravens to these houses and is like, "Hey, you guys committed crimes last time. You need to pay for it, okay?" And naturally, because they think the Lannisters are pushovers at this point, they fully revolt and say "Hey, we're revolting from you. How dare you? We don't give a shit. We're gonna fight you. Cool. And Tywin's like, "Great, that's what I wanted you to do." And so he quickly forms an army of 3,000 and marches on House Tarbeck. The Tarbecks are basically caught unawares. They try to send word to the Rains, but it is pretty much too late. So they get just massacred. Tywin kills the Lord, I think a bunch of his sons, and basically to the point where it's just Ellyn and one of her children left in the castle, hiding out. Her thought being "Okay, we'll just have a siege. You can't get to me, ha ha ha." But then Tywin builds some siege weapons and flings some boulders at the castle and literally brings down the castle on top of Ellyn Tarbeck. And there she goes, she dies. And then after, they have brought the castle crashing down on Ellyn, they light the place on fire. And as they are doing it, that is when the Rains of Castamere finally show up to the battle and are like, "Oh, wow, everything's on fire." So they kind of get the jump on the Lannisters, but then the Lannister army is just bigger, so they get repelled. The Rains flee back to Castamere, and Castamere has a bunch of mines underneath it, so they basically hide all their people in the mines, thinking that okay, Tywin's not going to be able to fight in mines with that army, so this is kind of our safety cushion, whatever. And it's at that point that they try to negotiate with Tywin. They send some terms and "Hey, so you're gonna do this, and you're gonna send us some hostages, and we're gonna be at peace, but you need to chill. This ain't okay." And Tywin says, "Yeah, get fucked." So at that point, Tywin has his soldiers basically seal up all the entrances to the mine, except for, I think, one, in which he also has these soldiers basically divert a, stream into it so that the mines fill up with water and drown all of House Castamere, who is now hiding within them. Some of his soldiers said that, they could hear people screaming, at least initially, but then by the next day, there is nothing. It is silence. And then for good measure, Tywin has the now empty castle set to the torch and, burned up. So Tarbeck Hall and Castamere are now empty ruins. And again, he was 19, maybe 20 at most. Terrifying man. So if you go read the lyrics for the Rains of Castamere, which, by the way, in the song, it's Rains as in it's raining, but their last name Rains is Reynes, so it's a pun. But if you read the lyrics, they are from the perspective of the Lord of Castamere, basically saying "Who are you to tell me what to do? Blah blah blah," and then eventually now there isn't anyone left, and they are weeping over the halls, etc., etc. Sorry, I don't have the lyrics in front of me, and I don't have an easy way of going back and forth. I don't have them memorized. So yeah, that song's terrifying. Tywin's terrifying, and yeah, what else do you want me to talk about? Hey, let me know in the comments. Okay, goodbye.